My family ignored me my entire life for my brother, but when my fiancée got pregnant with him and my parents defended him, I disappeared for 6 years. Now I'm a millionaire, and they're bankrupt. They begged for help, and I let them fall. I'm 32 years old. I work in cybersecurity for a startup that basically exploded in the last few years. And I need to tell this story because I recently closed a deal that changed my life, and I finally realized I made the right decision like 6 years ago when I cut all contact with my family. I guess I should start at the beginning. When I was a kid and my brother Zachary was born, because that's when everything started to change. Although at the time I didn't understand anything. I was like 5 years old and just excited to have a little brother. The thing is that from the moment Zachary arrived, my parents acted like he was literally the second Messiah or something. I don't know how to explain it well, but it was like I just stopped existing to them. Like, when I brought home an A from school, my mom would say something like, "Oh, that's good, Joshua." And when Zachary learned to use the bathroom by himself, at 3 they practically threw a party. My dad had always wanted to be a doctor, but never could. His family didn't have money to send him to college back then, and from the moment Zachary was born, he started with this obsession that my brother was going to be the doctor he never was. To this day, I remember hearing him say, "This kid has surgeon's hands," when Zachary was literally 4 years old playing with Lego blocks. I grew up basically being invisible in my own house. My parents went to all of Zachary's soccer games, to all his school presentations, but when I won the science fair in 6th grade, my mom said she couldn't go because she had to take Zachary to the dentist. When I asked if she couldn't reschedule the appointment, she looked at me like I was the selfish one. Told me, "Your brother's health is important, Joshua. Don't be like that." And what could I say? I was 11 years old and already used to things being that way. Honestly, in high school things got worse. I was good at math and science. I loved technology, spent hours teaching myself how to code, because at my school the computer classes were a joke. Zachary, on the other hand, was a terrible student, constantly got CS and DS, but my parents always had excuses. That the teacher didn't know how to teach, that other kids distracted him, that he needed a special tutor. They paid him private tutors for years, like hundreds of dollars a month, while they told me they couldn't help me pay for a programming course that cost like $200 because we didn't have the money. 2 weeks later, they bought Zachary a new laptop because his was too slow, according to him. It came time to apply to colleges, and I worked like crazy to get scholarships because I knew my parents weren't going to pay for my education, you know? All the money was reserved for Zachary to go to an expensive medical school. I applied to like 15 different universities, wrote I don't know how many essays, stayed up late studying for the SAT. When the letter came saying I had gotten a full scholarship to study computer science at a pretty good university, I didn't even show it to my parents right away. I waited until dinner, had this stupid hope that they would finally be proud of me, you know what I mean? My mom read the letter, said "That's good, Joshua," and then literally in the same breath turned to Zachary and started talking to him about what medical schools he should consider in the future. My dad didn't even read it, just nodded and kept eating. That night I cried in my room. And I know it sounds pathetic for a 17-year-old guy, but I just couldn't take it anymore. My Aunt Mary, my mom's sister, was the only one who really congratulated me when she found out. She called me and said, "I'm so proud of you. Your hard work paid off," and she was basically the only person in my family who acted like what I had achieved mattered. I started college, and honestly, it was the first time I felt free. Nobody compared me to Zachary. Nobody ignored me. I was just Joshua, and that was enough. I threw myself into my classes, started doing coding projects in my free time, got a part-time job in the university's IT department. It was during my second year that I met Olivia. She worked at the Starbucks near campus, was smart, funny, we got along well. We started dating, and for the first time in my life, I felt like someone really saw me, you know? We'd been dating for like 6 months when I told her I wanted her to meet my parents. She was excited. I was nervous, but thought maybe this time would be different. I talked to my mom on the phone, told her I had a girlfriend and wanted to bring her to dinner one weekend. My mom said they were very busy. Maybe another time. 3 months passed, she kept postponing. There was always an excuse. Meanwhile, Zachary had started dating a girl in his senior year of high school, and my parents treated her like she was part of the family. Organized special dinners. My mom went shopping with her on weekends. I finally brought Olivia without warning. We just showed up one Sunday for lunch. My parents were polite but cold, did the bare minimum. Olivia noticed, obviously. In the car back, she asked me if she had done something wrong, and I had to explain that it wasn't her. It was me. It was that I had never been enough for them, and probably never would be. She hugged me and told me her family would love me, and they did. Her parents treated me better than my own parents, honestly. 2 more years passed. I graduated with honors, got a good job offer at a tech company, was making my own money. Zachary had managed to get into some random university with minimum acceptable grades. My parents basically had to beg and make donations to get him accepted, but he got in. My dad was over the moon, talked all the time about how his son was going to be a doctor, as if I didn't exist. I didn't even try to call them anymore, only talked to my Aunt Mary, who kept me updated on everything. I decided to propose to Olivia. We'd been together almost 4 years. I was sure she was the person I wanted to spend my life with. I saved for months to buy a decent ring. Nothing super fancy, but nice, meaningful. I proposed to her in the place where we met, that Starbucks near campus, and she said yes. I was so happy, like I felt like my life was finally going in the right direction. I told my parents about the engagement, expecting nothing, basically. But surprisingly, my mom seemed excited, said she wanted to organize an engagement dinner, that Olivia should go dress shopping with her, all that stuff. I was confused, but also a little hopeful. Maybe they were finally going to act like a normal family. Olivia went to dinner at their house like 3 times that month. My mom called her constantly. My dad even asked about the wedding date. Zachary was also there at those dinners, had just come home for the summer after his first year at college. 2 months after the engagement, Olivia asked me to meet up. There was something weird in her voice on the phone. She sounded nervous, scared even. We met at a park near her apartment, and before I could say anything, she started crying. She told me I'm pregnant, and for a second my brain tried to process that as good news, even though we weren't planning to have kids yet. But then she kept talking and said it's Zachary's. I swear the world stopped. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I asked her, "What do you mean it's Zachary's?" And she told me everything between sobs. That they had started talking at those dinners, that he was texting her, that they met up a few times in secret, that it happened 3 times, that she was so sorry, that it was a terrible mistake. I just sat there feeling like someone had ripped my heart out of my chest. Finally, I asked her if my parents knew, and she nodded. Said that Zachary had told them last week that they wanted to talk to me but didn't know how. 3 of them in the living room, Zachary, my mom, and my dad. My mom started with Joshua. "Son, we need to talk about this calmly." But I exploded. I yelled at them, told them everything I had been holding in for years, asked them how they could be sitting there acting like this was something that could be resolved with a conversation. My dad told me to stop being dramatic, that these things happen, that Zachary didn't plan it and neither did Olivia. My mom added that we should think about the baby, that it was my nephew or niece. That family was the most important thing. I couldn't believe it. I yelled at Zachary, asked him why. What had I done to deserve this? He just cried, said he was sorry over and over like that fixed anything. My mom immediately took his side, said I was being cruel to my brother, that he already felt bad enough. My dad said something I'll never forget. He said, "Maybe you should let Olivia go." Joshua. Clearly, she and Zachary have something special, if this happened. Something broke in me in that moment. I realized I was never going to be enough for them, that they could justify literally anything Zachary did, no matter how much it hurt me. I told them to go to hell, all 3 of them, and that I never wanted to see them again. My mom started crying. My dad told me I was being immature. Zachary kept apologizing. I walked out of that house, and I swear I felt like a weight lifted off me. Despite the pain, I went back to my apartment, packed all my stuff in 2 days. I called Olivia, told her I never wanted to see her again, blocked her number. I blocked my parents' numbers, Zachary's, everyone's except my Aunt Mary. She called me that week, told me she understood my decision, that she would do the same in my place, that she would always be there if I needed her. I asked her not to tell me anything about them, that I needed to move on completely, but she insisted that someday I would want to know, that it was important. I didn't agree, but I let her do what she wanted. I threw myself into work like crazy. I coded 12, 14 hours a day, focused only on learning more, on being better. The pain was there all the time, but I used it as fuel. I don't know if I'm explaining myself. I started specializing in cybersecurity, was fascinated by the idea of protecting systems, of finding vulnerabilities before someone else did. A year after cutting contact, I got an offer from a small startup in another city, like 6 people working in a garage basically, but the project sounded amazing and the founder was brilliant. I moved without thinking twice. My Aunt Mary called me every couple of months or so, gave me updates even though I had told her I didn't want to know anything. One day she told me Zachary had failed his first important exams in medical school. A few months later, she said he'd been put on academic probation. 6 months after that, she called to tell me he'd been permanently expelled, that he had wasted like $80,000 of my parents' money in 2 years of medical school and had nothing to show for it. I felt nothing when she told me. Like I expected to feel satisfaction or something, but I just felt empty. Meanwhile, I was growing at my job. The startup started taking off. We got funding, hired more people. I became the head of the security team. I was making good money, had my own apartment, was dating someone new I met at a tech conference. My life was finally going well without my family dragging me down, and every day that passed, I felt more confident that I had made the right decision. My aunt told me that Olivia and Zachary had tried to make things work, but broke up when the baby was like a year old. Zachary couldn't hold down a job, was living with my parents again. Olivia had moved in with her parents. My parents had had to sell their big house and move to something smaller because their savings were destroyed between Zachary's medical school and supporting him after. My dad had had to postpone his retirement. A part of me felt sorry, but a bigger part thought they deserved it for never supporting me. 3 years later, my aunt told me Zachary had tried to start a supplement sales business, like those multi-level marketing things that are obviously scams. My parents had given him more money to start, like $15,000 they didn't have. Obviously, it failed. He lost everything. Then he tried selling used cars. Also failed. My parents were running out of money more and more, were in debt. My mom had had to go back to work full-time at 58 years old. 4 years after I cut all contact, my phone rang with an unknown number. Normally I don't answer, but something made me answer that time. It was my mom. She didn't even say hello, just started crying and saying, "Joshua, please, we need help. Your dad is sick. Zachary doesn't have a job again. We have no money. Please." I asked her how she got my number. Apparently my Aunt Mary had given it to her after they begged her for months. My mom told me everything, as if I didn't already know. That my dad had heart problems, that he needed expensive medications, that Zachary still couldn't hold a job, that Olivia barely helped them with some money for the grandson I had never met. She asked me to lend them money, to help them pay the debts, that it was my family and families help each other. I asked her where was that logic when Zachary slept with my fiancée, when you guys defended him, when you told me to let her go. She went quiet. I told her no, that I had built my life without them and didn't need their drama again. She called me selfish, told me my dad could die, that Zachary was my brother no matter what. I told her he stopped being my brother the day he betrayed me, that they stopped being my parents the day they chose to defend him instead of comfort me. I hung up and blocked that number too. My Aunt Mary called me a few days later, told me I had done the right thing, that I shouldn't feel guilty, that they had made their bed and now had to lie in it. The next 2 years were the best of my life professionally. Our startup closed a huge deal with an insurance company, like a multi-million-dollar contract. We expanded, opened offices in 3 cities. I became CTO with a salary I never imagined earning. I bought my own house, nothing extravagant but mine, paid off. I started seriously dating someone I knew from the tech community, someone who understood my work, who supported me, who didn't bring drama into my life. My aunt called me like 6 months ago to tell me my dad had died. He had another heart episode, this time fatal. She told me the funeral was in 3 days, that my mom wanted me to go. I told her I wasn't going, that I had closed that door 6 years ago and wasn't going to open it now. She understood. She asked me if I felt anything, and I told her honestly, I didn't know, that I had processed the loss of my father a long time ago, that the man who died was basically a stranger to me at this point. I didn't go to the funeral. I stayed home, worked on a new project, went out to dinner with my partner. My aunt sent me photos afterward. I don't know why. Maybe she thought I'd want to see them. Zachary looked destroyed. My mom, too. There were like 20 people at the funeral. Most probably didn't even know my dad well. I felt nothing looking at those photos. Absolutely nothing. And that told me everything I needed to know about whether I had made the right decision. Last week, we closed another massive deal, like the biggest in our company's history. I was in the meeting with the CEO and investors. We signed the papers, toasted with champagne. That night, I drove to my house, sat in my backyard, and thought about everything that had happened. I thought about that 5-year-old kid who just wanted his parents to see him, about the teenager who studied like crazy for a scholarship only to be ignored, about the 2-3-year-old whose heart was broken in the worst possible way. And then I thought about the 3-2-year-old man I am now, successful, stable, at peace. I don't regret anything. People ask me sometimes if I have siblings, and I say no. If I ever have kids, they won't know their grandparents because their grandparents chose not to be part of my life long before I chose not to be part of theirs. My Aunt Mary is the only family I need, and I don't even really need that. I have friends who are more family than my blood family ever was. Sometimes I wonder how Zachary and my mom are doing. If Zachary will finally get his life together, if my mom regrets how she handled everything. But they're passing thoughts. They don't keep me up at night. My aunt told me recently that my mom is still living in that small apartment, that Zachary still lives with her, that he works in retail making minimum wage, that my nephew or niece I never met is like 7 years old now. I didn't feel anything hearing that either. What I do know is that I made the right decision 6 years ago, when I walked out of that house and decided I deserved better. I deserved a family that saw me, that valued me, that didn't constantly compare me to someone else. And when I didn't find that family and the people who were supposed to give it to me, I built my own life without them. It's not the life I imagined when I was a kid, but it's a good life. It's my life. And I'm finally at peace with that.